Today we are going to talk about autism and intelligence. I'm Audrey Black.
I'm Katie Reed.
And I'm Abby Amick.
Autism is a complex developmental disability
That affects how a person communicates, interacts with others,
and experiences the world.
There are many common myths about autism created through media and a lack of awareness.
Some include the false belief that autism is caused by vaccines,
that only children are autistic or only boys are autistic, that autistic children are violent, or that autism can be cured.
We definitely cannot cover the wide breadth of misconceptions about autism in 5 minutes.
So we are going to debunk the myth that all people with autism have intellectual disabilities.
An intellectual disability is defined as a disability that affects the gaining of knowledge or skills.
Diagnosis often require an IQ below 70,
significant limitations in adaptive behaviors, and the onset before the age of 22.
This myth, like many in the field of psychology, comes from unreliable sources, media blowing things out of proportion, and social bias.
According to Shinoda et al., in 2000, 57% of those diagnosed with autism did not have an intellectual disability, and by 2016, the number increased to 72%.
The same study also noted that there were less diagnoses of autism without an intellectual disability in populations that historically have less access to healthcare and specialized therapies.
The authors theorized that this could mean that in these underdeveloped, underserved populations, there may be underdiagnosis of those with autism without an intellectual disability.
There's also a hardship in diagnosing females.
46% of females with autism have an intellectual disability, compared to 37% of males with autism have an intellectual disability.
And as a society, there's an issue with the awareness of autism being a spectrum, and there is not just one way that it appears in people.
Another potential source of the myth is that there is a much higher rate of intellectual disabilities in those with autism compared to the general population.
According to Andrews et al., 38% of people with autism do have an intellectual disability.
This is significantly higher than the 1 to 3% in the general population. One part of the brain that seems to have a relationship with both autism and intellectual disability is cortical thickness.
As seen in this image, cortical thickness is the thickness of the gray matter on the outer edges of the cerebral cortex. Cortical thickness seems to be a predictive factor for both intellectual disability and severity of autism symptoms.
Andrews et al. Found that a thinner cortex in certain areas of the brain correlated with higher levels of IQ in both children with autism and the control group.
They also found that a thinner temporal cortex associated with hearing, memory, and language correlated to higher IQ in children with autism.
Bedford et al. Had similar findings, as well as observing that a thick cortex predicted greater severity of autism symptoms in children with autism.
Two of the major reasons that our studies are trustworthy is because the findings were replicated and the sources were peer-reviewed.
When being peer-reviewed, a paper undergoes an extensive process to ensure that the claims that the author is making aligns with the results they got.
A peer reviewer will also check that their methods are reliable and ethical before the study can be published. People who think that all people with autism have an intellectual disability would be shocked to hear that Elon Musk, CEO, billionaire, creator of Tesla, SpaceX, Jim Essenrich, former MLB player for the Phillies, Florida Marlins, and Los Angeles Dodgers, and Greta Thunberg, an environmental activist, all have autism.
Again, we'd like to reinforce that autistic people are not only geniuses or have intellectual disabilities,
but that it is a spectrum, meaning that people can fall anywhere in between as well.
We just think it is useful to highlight the opposite extreme to help break the original myth. So why does it matter that we increase awareness?
Breaking the stigma dispels the misconception of how people think about autism, allowing us to stop limiting them to this stereotype and to grow in understanding.
We can improve the well-being of those who have autism.
By being able to recognize that not everyone who has autism also has an intellectual disability, we are able to make more accurate diagnoses and improve therapies and treatments.
And helps individuals feel better about their identity when they aren't trying to fit into what society says they should be simply because they have the diagnoses of autism.
To improve as a society, we should teach autism more accurately and correct misinformation when we encounter it.
Improve research to dig even deeper and develop an even greater understanding of autism and how it can impact individuals differently.
We can create a platform where people can share their own experiences, and we can use social media to challenge misinformation or provide correct information to improve everyone's understanding of autism.
In summary, while 38% of those with autism also have an intellectual disability,
not all people with autism have an intellectual disability.
This is interesting research. There is interesting research about the roles cortical thickness plays in both autism and intellectual disability, but this is only scratching the surface of all the research that needs to be done.
And all of us need to work together to build a greater understanding of autism, challenge misconceptions, and improve the well-being of those with autism.
Thank you for listening. To learn more or for more information on specific diagnosis, see the sources below.